Hello people, this is Ryder here with the review of the Kamen Gaim DX Genesis driver and Melon Energy Lockseed. So this is our standard beginning of quarter 2 driver that they've been... Has it been a consistent thing since double? Like, basically, there's always been a new driver that would always appear by Christmas and such. However, this time around, this is not for the secondary rider, because obviously Baron already made his appearance. This is for the next selection of riders, the new generation riders, as obviously the Sengoku driver riders are considered armored riders. So I think, again, I don't think new generation is the official term, but it's the term I see a lot, like coined a lot. So obviously here we have Kamen Rider Zangetsu Shin, the upgrade or the power-up form of Zangetsu, as he is the sole, not the sole user, he is one of the main users of the Genesis driver. And I really do just really like how they still keep the aesthetic of the Gaim boxes, but like obviously refreshed, or in a way it's more carbonated, because obviously now we're literally making juices and drinks now. So again, it just says, I think basically it just comes with one energy Lockseed. Here we have the other three, and obviously I don't know why it, like back then I guess I get why they had to state which gimmick it comes with, but anyways, it comes with the Melon Energy Lockseed obviously. The right, here we have Zangetsu Shin. This is such a beautiful suit. It's like such a nice evolution and such, because like you can definitely see the big thing. Like the thing that's cool about the new generation riders is that they still kind of carry the same elements of the armored riders, but just have more to them and such. Again, Zangetsu Shin and everything we can do with it, especially the fact this is actually connected to Gaim's power-up. So we're taking too long. So here we have the Genesis driver all out and such. I gotta make sure this is actually off. Obviously we'll cover the belt straps, even though they're not anything spectacular. These are actually all new. This is not just retooling the same belt straps from the Genesis or from the Sengoku driver. This is completely original. This is a completely new mold, as the back, obviously, even though it's kind of weird, the Genesis driver within the context of Gaim is supposed to be like the perfected version of the belts, of like the rider system within Gaim and such, as the Sengoku drivers redeem, I forgot what they were kind of deemed, but like obviously they weren't as powerful as these things and such. So I just really like how they really took that in consideration. Even the belt strap is actually new, because like it actually has like these lines and such. Just something we don't get anymore. I feel like this is basically what I'm saying with the Gaim reviews. Obviously this is the left strap, and then the right strap also carries that same aesthetic. And the belt cover, we have to talk about the belt cover. Like, I genuinely don't know what it's supposed to be, because it's just a random diamond. It probably means more, but like, it's at least new. Like, we don't get stuff like this anymore. And this one has never been reused. We will actually hold off putting the belt strap on, and we will take a look at the Melon Energy Lockseed later. But here is the Genesis driver. Definitely a lot more bulkier, or definitely a lot more bigger than the Sengoku driver. But it just does itself well at being like being more technological, but at the same time like blending itself really well. Again, like the core colors of this one is like this nice metallic red and like the silver, right here and black. However, obviously we have this nice tint of blue down here, and then we have also clear straw. I like the straws. The straws are really neat. And like, I don't know, just handling this driver is actually kind of cool. Just because, I don't know, like these grips are actually neat. They might seem tacky, but like, I don't know, they just managed to make it look pretty like cohesive overall and such. And again, this is where you're going to insert the energy Lockseeds, because this is what is called the Genesis core. And the back is like, obviously there's not really much, and it's just this weird slope. Like, yeah, the back, I kind of find the placements of things weird, because why is the battery compartment just randomly here? Why is the on and off switch down here? And the trans stamp is just here. Obviously the LNR. The speakers just up here, which I think works. It works, and I do like how they mirrored it here and such. Yeah, obviously with this by itself, as you can hear, this has a gear system when you push this in. As you can see, this entire mechanism spinning around. Like, there's just a lot going on. As you can see, when you press this in, these two pegs jut out, and then just pushing this in, obviously you're setting off a gearbox, and then that it just retracts in and such. And then again, might as well just compare it with the Sengoku driver. Obviously, as you can see right here, like, I still like, again, like what I said before, despite how vastly different they are, it's just that the Genesis driver obviously just has this entire section, because this one actually does require 3 AAA batteries, just due to the fact this one has LEDs, unlike the Sengoku driver. But, like, you know, I still like how it still carries the same fundamentals of the Sengoku driver. Obviously, just the way you activate it, instead of slicing it, you press it in and such. And like, obviously this is still a mechanism that they are carrying around and such. But yeah, we will obviously just putting in the belt straps is pretty typical like so, but obviously, as you can tell with how I'm struggling with just handling this thing, this is actually going to be one of the very few drivers we're actually going to keep strapped, because it actually helps it keep it balanced. So again, here's the Genesis driver fully strapped, to which this one doesn't have any holders. You can add holders, but it's not accurate. But as you can see right here with the belt strap, this thing actually can like just sit on its own. So yeah, before we get into anything of here we have the Melon Energy Lockseed, which this is our new subsection of the Lockseeds now, which basically this is what the Lockseeds have evolved into. The Energy Lockseeds, which are more, again, mechanical looking Lockseeds. Instead of, you know, the solid paint that we've been getting in the two-tone color, instead we now have an entirely blue translucent base, and then with a darker blue lock loop and button and such. And as you can tell from here, like, obviously it's similar, but obviously it's changed, because obviously this section juts out because of the gimmick. And obviously, as you can tell from here, you can still open it, but you can tell you can't actually knock it all the way through. That was on. And also, as you can see from here, this actually carries over the switch that's technically the Suica Lockseed, but modified. Like, obviously, it's basically the same way. It's the same switch, but just kind of changed up a bit and such, which, again, it just works the same and such. And obviously we still have the translucent button like so. Obviously it still runs on 3 cell batteries, on off switch right here. But last but not least, if we do press this button like so, this is how the energy lock seeds open up, basically by this button right here. As again, they no longer it's no longer revealed by slicing, but instead by literally opening it up, which I think is pretty cool, especially because these lock seeds technically don't need to represent what arms weapon they have because they all carry the same arms weapon and such. But yeah, as you can see right here, obviously you can't tell. Melon energy is actually based off of a different type of melon. This one specifically is a sweet melon, obviously as it's orange and such, which I think is really clever. And the thing too is that you can pop these off because there's just clips and such. So if you for some reason accidentally had these fall out and just tried to find your way of clipping this, just make sure to actually just try to clip it in like so. And as you can see from here, because the energy loxies actually do start a new lineup, this one now says ELS04, which I think is also pretty clever because Melon was also 04 within the lineup. Anyways, activating it like so through the on switch, we get that sound, and we obviously don't get invest game sounds, we just get 4 standard sounds for the energy lock seeds. You can see how bright the orange LED is. Last but not least, the activation. So as you can also hear too, obviously besides the fact that this system has an entirely new voice, they actually add the energy Lockseeds add a bit more to the Lockseed formula now, because with the activations, basically they're kind of like Gashats, or basically what the Gashats took, of just having the announcement of the item and then a rift after, which is pretty interesting and such. So let's use this with the Genesis driver. So with the Genesis driver, you want to turn it around and spot the on off switch like so. There it announces itself. Obviously this thing has a 7 LED. Now before we actually use the Melon Energy Lockseed by itself, just like the Sengoku driver, you get the just standard sounds. So you get a simple sound for just pushing it in. So nothing much more. And then when we use the Melon Energy Lockseed, it's basically like the Sengoku driver. We want to insert it within the driver and then lock it in. Because then obviously after that, just like the Sengoku driver, we just want to, instead of obviously slicing down, we want to push this in and let it go, obviously. So you have this pulsating sound and just push it in like so. And you can hold this in as long as you want and such, because these are programmed to actually stay in for that long. And then obviously when you're ready, just let the grip go. There we go with the transformation of Zangetsu Melon Energy Arms. Kamen Rider Zangetsu Shin Melon Energy Arms. To which, again, just like the addition of that rift in the announcement, now instead we have, for the most part, and a completely instrumental jingle, which again is I like it overall and such, and I like how down here it actually displays the like. I just like how this works because obviously this displays as orange, obviously because you inserted this Lockseed in. Like I just like how this works because obviously this is a juicer, so like when you obviously push this in, you're like juicing out all. You're like pushing all the juice down into here. And after soda, it rises up to carbonated and such. Anyways, we obviously do have our standard finishers. However, we only have 2 finishers now. So there is Melon Energy Scotch, and then instead of an OA, we actually jump straight into Sparking, to which I don't really like how you have to achieve this because you have to fight with the gearbox. So basically it's something like this. Sometimes you can just overwrite the gearbox, but obviously that's bad because obviously that's scratching it and such. Yeah, like, the 7 LEDs are pretty neat overall and such. Obviously, to cancel the transmission, fold this in like so and then unlock it. Have it say that and just simply pull it off. Now, there is an interesting thing here because of how the Genesis driver works. So obviously, if you actually lock on, but without actually inserting the Lockseed, so it does the standby, but then when you push it in, it actually doesn't do anything. And that's all because the Genesis driver actually works off of a 3 button notch system and such, because this actually is what determines which LEDs it plays. So the reason why it still at least activates because it knows you inserted a Lockseed, but because none of these buttons are pressed, it can't do anything. So the way that is determined, obviously, is through this slot right here. Because as you can see, now the energy Lockseeds have this big gap, which is why the speaker got moved over and such. So I think Melon Energy in particular is the 4th slot, if I recall. I generally don't remember. I think it was this slot. Yeah. Yeah, so Melon Energy, that means he has this entire section filled, so then he can actually press this 3rd button. Obviously, pressing these don't do anything unless it's locked on and such. But if you were to use a normal Lockseed, obviously just doing the same things we've done before. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of things. So when you basically, first of all, because a Lockseed doesn't have those spots closed up at all, it's basically kind of like the powered builder buckle, with where all the raised buckles didn't even have existing holes. So basically they're just programmed to actually hit all the buttons. That's the same case here. All the Lockseeds are programmed to say liquid, because it's pressing all the buttons and such. Obviously, as you can tell, this isn't like automatically cut down and such. And Gomberizing officially does make this look official, especially with the Legend Riders. So this is technically an official look of a Lockseed within the Genesis driver, but obviously it's kind of odd. And obviously, because this thing doesn't know it's in the Genesis driver at all, it still thinks it's in the Sengoku driver because it's the same exact pins that get pushed in. When we do the attacks, obviously the Lockseeds are not programmed to be held because it just thinks it's the Sengoku driver and such. So, not really much to go on from there. Not really any point to cover all the Lockseeds in here because it's just gonna think it's the Sengoku driver. But speaking of that thing, let's get into the last feature, which is the Genesis core. To which, to remove that, you press this button up here like so. You're technically supposed to hold it down, and then you just simply pull this entire section out like so. To which you're again just left with the Genesis driver itself. To which we can take a look at the Genesis core, to which is just, it's pretty neat. It's a neat piece overall. It's just like this nice glossy black plastic, obviously just with the lock mechanism and such. And it's just really interesting overall. And then, taking the Sengoku driver, first of all, we will actually show you what if you use the energy Lockseed within the Sengoku driver. So obviously, it's the same process even to when we slice it down. But, obviously it's the same thing. So we're not really gonna go much into that. Because, once we remove the faceplate, as you can see right here, this thing actually has a track for it to go into the Sengoku driver, like so. As you can see, a white peg comes out and such. So for the case of this demonstration, we will use, obviously as we already have the Zangetsu faceplate, we will transform ourselves into Zangetsu Jinba Melon, because this is an actual form, but only in the novel. So activate both Lockseeds. And then when you lock on the Genesis core, you're not gonna get anything obviously because technically the button for it is not hitting anything, but you will get something obviously. This section, the Sengoku driver obviously works like how you would. So obviously you just get the traditional samurai standby, and then just slash like so. I know I already accidentally spoiled the name, but yes, this is Zangetsu Jinba Melon and such. Again, a novel exclusive form, to which obviously it just makes sense to pair these two. It's just unfortunate. Like, I'm happy that it's official in a way, but like, I want to see it in person. Anyways, like, I do like how this works overall and such. But obviously we still have our standard 3 attacks. So there we have the Melon Squash and the Jimba Melon Squash. Yole. Yeah, like overall, I just really like how the sounds overall. I like how the energy Lockseeds like bring something new to the Sengoku driver and such. It's just a really cool concept overall. Technically, the only issue about using the Genesis core is that it does actually make this top heavy just a bit, but I mean, it's like technically it's fine. And then just fold everything back in like so, and lock off. And whoop-de-doo, this thing really likes springing out a lot and such, so we will just put this here like so. The camera's gonna overheat, so we'll let it cool. So overall, my thoughts on the Genesis driver overall as a base package, it's pretty on par with the Sengoku driver. You don't have the ability, obviously you don't have two energy Lockseeds that you can really play off of, but I mean, I think they removed that ability because of the fact you can literally use the Genesis core and the Sengoku driver, so you still are gain functionality with this thing in two different items, or you still gain like two different sound sets in a way, so I think it's worth it. And I forgot to bring this up because this is actually not really going to be brought up much, but if you actually were to use a normal Lockseed within the Genesis core, you have to open it. You actually get an additional phrase before the transformation. After that, it's just the same finisher but delayed. Obviously, this is a big deal because you actually do get a new sound set. Like, you get new combinations basically with your Sengoku driver, because now you can actually pair up two Lockseeds together and do stuff like that. But I apologize for not diving into that more. If you want to see more of that, watch the demo in 2 weeks. Yeah, like, this is definitely, like, I think I've already said everything I've said. Like, I just like how well this is, like, still carries the fundamentals of the Sengoku driver, but, like, it has its own uniqueness to it. Like, I've already kind of explained my gripes, which I kind of forgot what they were. Again, I think Melon Energy is kind of too springy sometimes, just because, like, sometimes when you don't want it to open, it just does. And the Genesis driver itself, sometimes this does get stuck, because in the demo, for some reason, when I did this, it stopped here, and then it continued, which was kind of weird. I know people get annoyed about the gear and such. Obviously, there's modifications to remove the box and such, but obviously it just makes that more smoother. I think my biggest gripe is just I kind of wish they thought of this sooner, because like I think it is kind of dumb in a way that, like, obviously how you have to achieve the finishers is not really the greatest, because you have to really ruin that gearbox, and it's just, I don't know, I kind of wish they thought of a better way of handling it. But yeah, getting this in the aftermarket's not as bad. I actually surprisingly got this new for $45 off of Mandarake. I don't think you're gonna have that luck for the most part, because most of the time, I think this driver is sold out for the most part, just because you know, this one, it's a smaller collection, so you don't need to have the Sengoku driver for it. You can just have like your own contained collection of energy Lockseeds and new generation riders, and you're good. Though basically, if you have the Sengoku driver, you get an entire new play set of sounds and such. Because again, I just like what the Genesis core does and such. And like obviously you can't do anything without the Genesis core. It still functions the same, but it's just that obviously the buttons that would actually let this work obviously aren't, they're not being pressed and such. And I just like how this is like basically when this thing is in the single driver, it works the same. It works the exact same. It's just that it just has an additional peg out, and like what I said before. Yeah, that undersold this item, so that I had to do this review. This is Ryder, and I'll leave people. Bye.